seems like the same today. 10,000 horses drag me down. It seems like the same, 10,000 voices crying out. Put on yourself to see there's nothing left at all. Nothing left at all. 10,000 fingers dragging me down, down, down. Never wanna slow down. I keep rolling alone. Never wanna slow down. What I feel and what I know. Oh, it's all bound to change, bound to change, bound to change, bound to change. It seems like the same way moving on. 10,000 lives, you're washing your hands of everything else. So put on yourself to see there's nothing left at all. 10,000 stairs there bringing me down, down, down. Never wanna slow down. I keep rolling on. Never wanna slow down. What I feel and what I know. Oh, it feels like a strain that everybody's given to me. Oh, let my hands get tired. Gonna write it all out. Never gonna slow down this time. Oh, it's all bound to change, bound to change, bound to change, bound to change. Bound to change from the past and knowledge tomorrow. Carry me on my way. I feel you pressing what's left through smoke. Change for the sake, change for the sake of change. Seems like the same, it's 10,000 cracks you're walking on.
There you go. That's a little preview for you of what's in this video and probably a whole lot more. So if you're interested in some of those things you've seen, you want to see how that stuff unfolds, keep watching the video and I'll see you at the end. Okay, I can start taking the original cabinet apart. My initial thought is I'm going to reuse it. So, I mean, I need to take everything out of it, all the staples, all the braid, everything, and get the rails off of it and get it ready to strip. Little point of interest here, the transformer on Indy 500 is in the center of the cabinet, and they actually have to turn that cord receptacle sideways that I'm unscrewing there, which is unique to this title. I think they even had to make a unique cord cover to make it all work out. That's going to be to clear some mech or some part of the playfield that would hit if the transformer was in its usual position, which will be a bit more to the left. Going to take the playfield bushings out of the way. I like to use these Bally receiver levers, I'll call it. It works really good. You can get some leverage there, and it's kind of a thick piece of metal. It goes in there really nicely without deforming it, and I usually have plenty of them laying around. So that's what you see there. I like to repurpose shit sometimes, honestly. You'd be amazed. But some of the best tools I have are not tools at all. Another point of interest here, if you look right behind my left arm in my elbow there, you'll see that drag mark on the inside of the cabinet. that's something that we're going to need to investigate and talk about in just a little bit. I know it doesn't look like much, but it'll be a lot more clear when I do that. All right, I'm going to break out my air ratchet here and get those corner brackets loose. That's the best tool I found for the job. I've actually had that air ratchet that's in my hand right there since the 80s. When I was a painter's helper, it was one of the first tools I ever bought off the tool truck. And they really don't make stuff like they used to. That's not a lie. Here's my Velcro covered rubber mallet. I make shit up around here sometimes. So yeah, I use that to tap the bolts out. It keeps from damaging the threads. I can take the head off now. Everything's free, and we'll see what that head looks like now that it's off, and we can really evaluate it. All right, it's not good. This thing looks like it was made out of scrap wood. Pretty common, but less than ideal if you're evaluating something that you really want to build something nice out of. That piece of wood at the very bottom has got this kind of like spackling in it, and it's a little bit compromised in the joints. I'm not going to worry about it too much right now. I'll see what else I've got to work with, and I'll go from there. Not feeling too great about that original head for a variety of reasons. Just sometimes it's just like if the juice is worth the squeeze, and it's not. By the time I get the decals off of there and patch up all the corners, and no matter what, it's going to have that ugly bottom. I just don't think that's the right head for this job. Be fine, if you were just having fun or something like that. But I got people that got expectations. Got the heat gun in my hand, and I'm about to start taking these rails off. So heat gun and the putty knife will be how I take these off. I have other ways of doing it too, but with this era and what I'm planning on doing, which is reuse this cabinet, the best course is usually the heat gun, the putty knife. It'll do two things at once. It'll get the rail off and usually take the two-sided tape with it. Can be an exercise in patience, though, as most things are when it comes to restoring these games. Rails are off. I think I already knocked the speaker stand off out of the floor. I like to do that so I can sand the floor really good and clean. And right now I'm probably pulling all the staples and ground braid off. That is one of the things that makes reusing the original cabinet a little bit more challenging. I'm going to probably run my braid differently, and I don't want to see all those depressions from the staple that was there, so I'll need to fill all that stuff in order to kind of have like a blank canvas, I guess you would say. So that'll be something we have to deal with in a little bit. Gonna vacuum it out, get all the dust, the debris, the loose staples out of here, and then we can really see what we got to work with. There it is, gutted for the most part. I'm going to knock the chocks off the back of it. They're hard to work around, and those are probably chewed up and need to be replaced anyway. It's not hard to get them off, that's for sure. If you look at that white material, basically this thing is wrapped with vinyl on the back. That's not good, but you do see it sometimes. All right, I was just about to take my cabinet, or this cabinet, up there and start prepping it. I had all the staples pulled out of it. It's got it ready to go. Knock the chocks off the back of it. Just everything you would want to do if you're going to really start to restore one of these original cabinets. But one thing kind of caught my eye. I suspected it a little bit, before I finished tearing it all down, but I wasn't fully convinced, and I couldn't really gauge it until it was completely apart with the rails off of it. But this particular cabinet is bowed in, so that means the two sides are sucking in pretty much where the playfield would go. It doesn't happen on the lower portion of the cabinet because the floor is holding it apart, but that empty space, they will bow in sometimes. I've had brand new cabinets like that. I've had brand new cabinets that I took off a pallet and looked at and immediately was on the phone with the cabinet builder and told him, it's like, you're gonna have to build another one. This thing, you wouldn't be able to get a playfield in this thing if you try. So I'm not immune to it even myself here, but I know I know to look out for it. And so a way that I usually will verify is I'll measure it. So if this, I think this is supposed to be about 20.5 inches, and it's close to that up top here. And then here in the center, it's running at about 20.25. So that kind of verifies to me, okay, this thing sucked in 1/4 inch. Doesn't sound like a whole lot, or maybe it does, depending on the tolerances of what you're dealing with. But for a pinball cabinet, and the opening we have for the play field and for the glass to slide in and out smoothly, not be forced in there, that's a lot. That's a lot of a bow to have to deal with. So another way you can check it if you're curious, if you're trying to do this on your own, is you can put a straight edge up against it and just look down through the middle of it and see what kind of gap you got. If you see a little bit, that's okay. But if you see a lot, and a lot being is kind of relative, but I'd say a lot's like anything more than 1/8 inch, then you got problems. And we got problems. That's all there is to it. We got problems. So I regret the time that I wasted getting to this point with it, but I'm not gonna go any further with this particular cabinet because it's not gonna build the kind of game that I'm hired to build. I'm hired to build the nicest thing I can, and that's not gonna be using a warped or bowed cabinet. I kind of got an indication that it might have some problems just by this drag mark right here. If you were trying to be like a little bit of an investigator, this drag mark right here can happen one of two ways. Either somebody's tried to lift and lower the playfield without it being locked in place fully. That's the most common thing. But another reason you might have this is if the playfield's really getting sandwiched too tightly by the cabinet. And therefore, every time you lift and lower it, the backboard just drags the inside of it. I suspect that's what's going on here. So what would happen is if I do restore this cabinet, I do paint this cabinet, do my usual process on this, I'm probably gonna have that very same gouge appear before I even get it out of here. As soon as I start to lift and lower the playfield to connect things and put things together, here I go. I've already got gouges in the inside of the cabinet, and somebody's getting something that's already damaged, which is absolutely not allowed around here. That's all there is to it. So that's where things are at with this. This is kind of going to be a bust for me, but we'll get into the solutions and we'll go from there. So I went over to my warehouse, and luckily I had just one Indy 500 cabinet. And I had this one built a couple years ago before I got into maybe having hardwood floors and all that different stuff. So it's a standard build. It's got the MDF bottom, and it keeps me from being dead in the water on this project, because if I didn't have that on hand, I would either be trying to modify a different new cabinet that I have around there that would work, which would probably mean relocating holes and that kind of thing, or I'd have to wait for one to be built, which usually takes about 2 weeks. So I'm in a good spot as far as that goes. I'll get it prepped and we'll just keep moving. So we got the new cabinet. Basically, the way I would put this is it's like a new house for all your furniture. That's really what it comes down to. So I'm just gonna go over this thing and make sure all the buttons fit and everything functions like it's supposed to, while it's a bare piece of plywood and I don't have too much of my time invested. That way, if there's any real issues that need to be sorted out, I'm not trying to deal with them after it's been decaled or painted or anything like that. And if there's really something wrong with it, and I have had something really be wrong with them before, I can just skip it all together and start over with something else. But it's all looking good so far. test fit the buttons. I just want to make sure everything comes in and out of there pretty easily. I'm not fighting it. And also you have to equate for the fact that there's going to be primer and paint put on there. That's not going to tighten it up too much, but if it's already tight before those things happen, then it's going to be even worse afterwards. So I'm getting out ahead of that stuff. There's a lot more to it than it would seem, so that's all good. Gonna bevel the leg bolt holes. I like to do this. It makes it easier to land the leg bolts in there without worrying about chipping anything or anything peeling later. And it also makes it easier when I'm filling these corners not to gum up or you know, overfill the leg bolts holes themselves in the process. It gives a little bit of a better area for a clean break when you just want to kind of push that Bondo or that filler material out of the way of the holes. Gonna work the flipper button areas over. Just want to make sure I get a really easy fit on those. I don't want to have to fight it too much. Sometimes the centers are a little bit tight, so I'm just opening that up. And then sometimes they're not deep enough. So I want to open that up too, make sure I got a nice deep recess for the button to sit in. Check the fit, tap it in there. Yeah, it's good. No problems. Okay, now I'm gonna start working this cabinet over with a little bit of filler. You know, no matter what, yeah, it's a new cabinet, but they're gonna have some assembly marks, some nail holes to fill, things like that, and it's at a minimum. That's what's good about it. But at the end of the day, this is a $1,000 wooden box is what this is. If you want it to look like a fine piece of furniture, you're gonna have to work it over, and that's what you're gonna watch me do. Okay, working over the seams and the joints. My goal is usually to make these things look like they're pretty much seamless or all one piece, as much as you can do with something like this. Some of the builds are cleaner than others. Like sometimes you can look and say, yeah, this went right together for them, and other times you can see, they had to fight this one a little bit. So I'm just cleaning up behind them. That's what I'm doing. And some jobs are easier than others, but it's just a process. So here I go. Let that set for about 20 or 30 minutes, and then I can knock it down. I'm probably using 80 grit here. You can use 80 or 180. I usually finish everything with 180, but if I have a lot of shaping to do or something like that, or if it's not going to be a painted cabinet, then 80's perfectly fine. And so there I go. Gonna knock that down, and then once I get it all shaped like I want, then I'll go back over it with a block and detail everything. Hitting all the corners with the block. Anything I can't really reach with the sander or do well with the sander. You know, a lot of times you see people try to use the sander just everywhere, and they have a bunch of rounded off corners and stuff. So you can only go so far with it. The rest of the way you're gonna have to do manually. Okay, I'm ready to mask the floor. I usually like to stand these up on end, kind of get it up off the ground a little bit, you know, a little bit higher where I can just get to the back of the cabinet pretty easily. I hate trying to bend down in there and get all the way back there. It can be hard to do a thorough job, so this just puts it in an easier position to mask accurately. There's the hard to reach stuff taped off, and now I'll put it in its natural position and catch the very front of it. I'll let you see that, and that'll give you an idea of how that goes. This is one of those little tricks of the trade, I guess. I'm using the cross brace as a straight edge to cut all the little sections I'll put in the corners. The corners are the hardest to tape off. The straight runs are pretty easy, and that's pretty much what you're seeing there. Going to use 3/4 of an inch tape on the edges of this particular floor because it's MDF. MDF can be a little bit fragile is the word I would use when you're taping on it, and so the 3/4 of an inch tape puts less of a footprint on the MDF for the masking process. And there's the lower. It's ready to prime. The head's pretty much rinse, repeat, so let's just get to priming this so we can keep moving. Ready to prime. So here we go. I usually start on the inside and then work my way out. That's the best course of action so you don't drag the hose or anything else in there. Pinball cabinets are really tough to paint inside and outside at the same time. Well, it's probably easy if you're using a rattle can or something like that with a big old paint gun, the airline. It's definitely, there's an art to it for sure. And that's all I'm doing. I'm priming the cabinet. So the trim out work's done. That's basically just means I've painted or primed all the interior, and now I can start focusing on the outside. And I'll move pretty slow with the primer. I mean, I don't get a bunch of runs in anything, but you know, if you got to run in some primer, not a big deal. You're going to sand it anyway. So I like to go slow, and I really like to pound the primer into those wood fibers and that wood grain to really bury it. And that'll all make sense pretty soon when we get into the guide coating and the sanding of the guide coat. You'll be able to appreciate why that's important then. Here's the guide coat. That's just basically black overspray is what that is, but depending on the color of the primer that you're spraying it over, it's kind of a little bit technical in what you use, but the real takeaway here is I'm spraying something on there that's going to help guide me through the sanding process later, hence the term guide coat, but we'll get into it when I'm sanding it. Primer's dried overnight, and I'll give you a little guide coat demonstration. So as I sand this primer, you can see that wood grain, and that guide coat is basically showing me what I would not be able to see if this was just primer. I might be able to look at it really closely and see a little something, but I would not see the magnitude of that wood grain without the guide coat. So when I sand this, my goal is going to be to sand all that black overspray away, and as I do that, that's going to get this thing straighter and straighter and slicker, and once the whole panel has no guide coat on it, then I know it's straight and it doesn't have the grain in it anymore. Same process on the lower, sand the guide coat away, and it's good and straight. Now I'm going to get inside the cabinet and start working on that. This is one of my least favorite parts. I've got a block of wood wrapped in sandpaper and just got to kind of get in there and work at it because you can only get so much done with the sander. Most of this has to be done manually. If you don't do this, the cabinet never is going to look that good on the inside. It's always going to have like a fuzziness in all the corners and all the crevices where you just didn't get it. So you got to figure out a way to get in there and get it. And that's what I'm doing. Couple hours later, and I'm ready to start painting. Gonna wipe it down really good first, make sure I get the dust off there, any oils from my hand from leaning on it and working it over, and we'll be ready to paint it. I am going to base coat, clear coat this particular cabinet because the decals for the head don't run end to end, and therefore I want to have the nicest finish possible on the cabinet itself because it will not be fully covered once decaled. Blowing it off and tacking it at the same time, and then after that I will just tack it, and then it will be ready to base coat. Here comes the base coat. Gonna start on the inside, get it trimmed out good, and then I'll move to the outside. And I'll have to switch some stuff around. I got some playfield rails I need to paint, a backboard. There's a lot going on in this room. And anyway, I'll work through it. You'll watch me do it. Base coat is done and it's ready for the clear. So that's the matte clear I was talking about, 70-30 mix. You can tell it's a little bit cloudy looking in the gun and the cup there, and that's how you know it's a matte clear. Starting on the inside, working my way out, so I don't have to worry about revisiting the inside after I've sprayed the outside. I'm going to spray this a bit heavier than I might normally spray some things, and that's because I want to make sure I got plenty of it on here so I can sand it and decal over it without worrying about breaking through. And also I'll probably only put one true coat on these sides that will get decaled, because putting any more on there is just a waste of materials. It's going to get a decal on. I just want to have a nice smooth surface to apply those decals to. So that's kind of like a coat and a half, I would call that. Clearing the head, same deal. Want to get it trimmed out first, get inside there, and then I can really focus my attention on the outside. The framing of the head, or the face of the head, is the most challenging part because it's very small, so it's like 3/4 of an inch wide, but it gets hit over and over pretty much every time. Like when I'm going across the top here, I'm getting a little bit more on the areas I just sprayed, and then when I go over the sides, I'm going to get a little bit more on areas I just sprayed. But the face of that head is a really important part of any of these paint jobs to me, because you're seeing that the whole time. Every time you look at the back glass, you see it. Every time you look at the score display, you see it. And so often you see people do those and it just has, like, you can see all the plies of the wood, and it's real porous and it's kind of rough looking. I like that to look. I think that's something that needs to look really good. And it's a small ask. It's only 3/4 of an inch wide, but it does take some work to get there. So getting a good heavy coat on here, and we should be done with the clearing process shortly. And there it is, cleared, and we'll let it dry overnight. It's got 2 coats on some panels and just a single coat on others. It's all determined on what's going to be covered when it's decaled. So pretty much you're going to want to have 2 good coats on the top and the back. That's not going to get decaled on the inside, but on the 3 panels, we'll call it, the 2 sides and the front, just 1 coat's good. Inside looks great. That's the challenge. It's not easy to do that without getting runs in it or a bunch of trash, so I'm happy with that. Had a bunch of bolts to paint for it, and the back panel. I was getting a back panel decal, but that back panel decal is going to stick to a nice back panel a lot better than it's going to stick to some rough one. So that's the idea behind that. And then onto the head, since the entire head's going to be seen on some level, even though it does get a smaller decal, I just went all out and put a really good paint job on that, because it is going to show even on the sides of the head, just not quite fully, right? It's going to have a decal on it, but not an entire decal. So we'll go with that, and it'll flatten and slicken out and do the things it needs to do as it dries overnight, and it'll look a little bit different tomorrow. Here's a little random bit of footage for you on the back end here. So I have that backboard, and that has dried overnight, and I'm trying to put this decal on here. The decal's all kind of rolling up. It's been rolled up in a tube for probably quite a while, and I've tried a couple different ways to get it to go on like I want it to go on, and pretty much my last resort with one of these is going to be the wet method. So kind of trying to get it to lay out, but it just, it's been rolled up for so long, the glue's kind of letting go, and it's really not that high quality of a decal at all. So I just try to work on it for a minute and see what happens. Despite my best efforts, I just can't get that to stick. There's no glue on this thing. It might as well be printed on photo paper. So that thing's going in the trash. I'll figure something else out. Okay, that's pretty much just a checkered flag background. I can do something like that. I'll probably do something a little bit more on scale. I felt like the scale of that was off anyway. It's a little bit too big and a little bit too busy, but I get the idea of what they're trying to do there, so I will do something similar, and we'll see how that goes. The good thing about painting it is, if you hated it, you could sand it and paint it black again, or you could still put a decal on it, so not really a big deal. I'll come up with something real quick, and we'll keep moving. Found a good checkerboard flag type pattern. It's a little bit more slanted. It's a little bit smaller, and it has a little bit more of an action look to it. So we'll see how that goes. Pretty simple. I just got to paint the white since it's already black, and we'll see what that looks like in a minute, and then we'll clear it. And there it is, cleared. So it's pretty much all you need and nothing you don't, and it fills the void pretty well, and should be a better alternative than that decal anyway. All right, how was that? You'll have to let me know. Give me a thumbs up if you like it. If you don't like it, just wait, it'll get better. That could be a lie. I've told you that before, and it doesn't get any better, but I'm trying, right? So this cabinet, I didn't end up restoring the original one, so if you're disappointed by that, don't worry. I got you covered. I'm definitely going to be restoring the next project's original cabinet, and that'll be that Gottlieb Stargate. So if you want to see that, you'll see it. And I got other videos of me doing it. Basically what it comes down to for me is I can't in good conscience restore a warped cabinet when I've got a perfectly fine one sitting in my warehouse. Nobody would do that. It just doesn't make sense. So that's what happened there. Had that backboard situation. The guy that owns it sent a backboard decal for it, and it was already kind of curling up. I was like, okay, yeah, I'll give it a try. Nope. Trash. All right. So I kind of looked at it. I was like, yeah, it's pretty simple. I mean, it's got a little bit more detail than what I did, but it's the same thing. It's a checkerboard. And now you got a painted checkerboard. That thing's durable. It looks good. That's going to hold up. You can put the parts on it without it puckering all up. So we handled that, and I don't even know. I can't remember everything I did. I will talk about the play field. I don't think I showed it in this video, but I did in the last. That's good to go. All I gotta do now is sand and polish that. That turned out great. I think I'm finally starting to learn how to do this. I'm starting to get it. I'm a slow learner. That's what's wrong with me. But anyway, that's kind of where things are at. I'm gonna leave it at that, and whatever is next is what's next. That's 4 or 5 days worth of work. I mean, you gotta call it good somewhere. So we'll call it good there, and we'll see what we get into in the next one.